when I put up a picture in my home or a poster on the wall, I normally look at it with appreciation and enjoyment for about 6 weeks, and then I become so familiar with it that I don't see it at all. It can be the same way with the commandments to love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love the neighbor as oneself. We hear them so often that we cease to pay attention to them truly. So years can go by and we're not thinking about their meaning or working to apply them in our lives. Sometimes we assume that we understand them, and we reduce the gospel of love to the gospel of nice. Another reason why we don't pay attention to these commandments in a constructive and progressive way is that they set up Mount Everest ideals. And divine ideals are helpful so long as we remember that we can only grow gradually. The will of God is not for us to live at some impossible ideal, but instead of trying to climb Mount Everest, we climb at Boston Mills or Brandywine in nearby Ohio or wherever we may be. But if we seek to grow sincerely and persistently, there is a wonderful continuation of the story because God enables us to love wholeheartedly. His grace does not catapult us into paradise perfection, but it enables us to experience soul-satisfying love. We will not fulfill the ideal completely in this life, but we do not feel inadequate or guilty because the experience of loving wholeheartedly now is so wonderful. The next thing is to recognize that we love God in large measure because he loves us first. So we need first, ideally, to receive the divine affection. In order to do this better, we can do three things. First, we get to know God personally. We take what we know about God intellectually and then use that knowledge to enhance our experience of knowing God as a parent and as a friend. Jesus revealed God as our Father. And if that concept has positive connotations for us, then we can freely transplant that intellectual knowing about God into the garden of the father-child relationship. Or call it parent-child if you prefer. Second, count your blessings. Not only the blessings that you have, but not everyone else has, but also the blessings that come to everyone. For example, God's love is poured out upon all persons. He sends his Spirit to indwell in the minds of every one of us. Believe wholeheartedly that God loves you with an infinite love. Third, open yourself to receive God's love and cease resisting. Sometimes we don't allow love in because of low self-respect. We foolishly feel that if we let God get close, he'll know everything about us and won't like us, and the relationship is going to be no fun at all. We may feel bad about ourselves because of something unbeautiful about our body or mind, or it may be something that we have done, or it may be a bad habit that we are struggling with, but we are not primarily our body and mind, or our misdeeds, or a bad habit. If we relax and allow and open ourselves to receive God's love, that love will reveal to us who we truly are. Now we're ready to explore what it means to love God with all our heart and soul and mind and strength. What does it mean to love God with all our heart? What is the heart? My answer is that the heart is where our priorities are. I'm not talking about the priorities that we want to have or that we think we have, but about the values and goals that actually motivate us to pursue them. When we love God, we have a new best friend. We share our inner life with him. We do things together. So how shall we enjoy material pleasures? How shall we conduct the life of the mind? How will we participate in one-to-one relationships and in groups of 3 or more? We have our desires about what we want to do and how we want to do these things. But when we truly love God and begin to live with him and get to know him, we realize that he has a will for our world and for us individually. And we come to that place where we desire supremely to do his will. And we want his Spirit to rule our heart. So when we feel some tension between our will and his will, some shadow in our heart, we have the privilege of recognizing that honestly, of praying for wisdom to guide us in reorganizing our priorities, and worshiping God for the eventual triumph that we shall enjoy as we persevere in the quest to love him with all our heart. Once we truly fall in love with God's new and better way, the priorities of the old self change. Increasingly, we pursue secondary values only insofar as we feel them to be in alignment with our love for God and his far-seeing purposes. What is it to love God with all our soul? What is the soul? Imagine that you are visiting a group of people who are pursuing a spiritual path, and that the leader, a woman who looks very wise and very spiritual, invites you to sit quietly, close your eyes for a few minutes, and center yourself. She says that in centering, you move from living mainly in the mind to living mainly in the soul. You relax and let go so that you are not caught up in the immediate concerns, the thoughts and emotions of the mind. You spend a few minutes that way, taking time to allow yourself to abide in and as your true and deeper self. When she brings you back to the here and now of the group, you feel refreshed and truly ready to listen to the speaker of the day, in this case, me. As I see it, the soul is deeper than the mind. It is, in fact, the true self. The mind is conscious of its thoughts and feelings, but the soul is moral self-consciousness. When we make an excellent moral decision, the Spirit blesses us and the soul feels great. The mind thinks, but the soul discerns truth. The mind may think too much, but when we're centered in soul, we are less thinking and more realizing. We can pray deliberately in the mind, but when prayer arises spontaneously and surges from the depths, that is the prayer of the soul. As we follow the divine way, the struggles of the soul are transformed. The soul moves from being lost to seeking to being found. From being hurt through the healing process to radiant. From torn through the reconciliation process to unified, and from rebellious through obedient to wholehearted. To love God with all the soul means taking soul time with God, developing our feeling for divine truth, beauty, and goodness. What does it mean to love God with all our mind? The mind is where we make choices. So naturally, we want to develop our mind's powers to understand and interact with the full spectrum of reality, material, intellectual, and spiritual. With the mind, we can perceive things, establish facts, explore causes and effects, find courage, pursue curiosity and adventure, interact socially, enjoy spiritual experience, and integrate all these into wisdom. We don't have to be a genius or have a lot of education, but we do need to use the intelligence we have. To learn to love God with all our mind, we sharpen our powers of intuition, of insight into material, intellectual, and spiritual reality. In this way, we develop our understanding of God and the creation. Then we live normally and naturally. We trust that our present understanding of God's will is enough to work with. It is God's business to let us know if we get off track. It is our business to be sensitive to these messages and to respond to them by intelligently and cheerfully making the changes that are needed. If we love God with all our mind, then whenever we are thinking, we are, consciously or unconsciously, seeking His will or carrying it out. To love God with all our strength involves willpower and motivation, determination, so that our good decisions have the force and constancy that is needed to shape our character. And there is moral strength, the power of righteousness. Loving with strength also involves activating our physical energies, the powers of the body, as we come into contact with material reality. Service has to get real. We develop and conserve our strength by taking care of our health with good nutrition, rest, and exercise, and by clean habits generally. How do we translate all this into loving the neighbor? Who is the neighbor? The neighbor is the other person, any other person. If we share the inner life with God, we are naturally led to do His will, and that means that we are becoming like God, and He loves everyone. So to love the neighbor as ourselves is to identify with God's love for each person with whom we interact. How do we do that? We get to know the other person. The ideal is to have an intelligent and wise affection for each of our fellow human beings. We approach that ideal gradually. Each day or each week, we can learn to know and love one more person. We listen empathetically as we seek to understand that person's motivation. We love others as we want people to love us. We ask God to help us in that, and we find that He actually gives us the heart to love. The heart of love desires to do good to others. Godly love is based on a realistic and compassionate understanding of the facts of the person whose life situation and choices and motivation we are getting to know. Even divine love has its severe disciplines. But if we embrace these disciplines, they lead us into green pastures and beside still waters. They restore our soul. Love comes with long-term strength as well as long-term gentleness. Sometimes I am angry and want support, but what I need are sensitive questions about what I feel and what I truly need. Sometimes I want gratification, but I need a tactful warning. Sometimes I want to escape in conversation with others, but need help in bravely taking the consequences of my action. The person who loves me may be gentle with my emotions, but will be strong in giving me what I need. And so we grow. to serve one another intelligently and wisely, in love and mercy, with gentleness and strength. We mobilize the energies of mind, soul, and body on the task in hand. In this fullness, we give to others the love that we receive from God. If you'd like to read over the text of this talk, you can find it on my website, universalfamily.org. It is titled Loving God and the Other Fully. Good day.